have a more joy of life kind of attitude. That there are people that are trying to do what they can, whether it's yoga, whether it's living right, sometimes not even living according to the dietary stuff that they should be doing, but they're trying to live to say 100 or 150. You got more and more people that is their kind of their goal. Whereas back in the early days, and definitely in the 1800s, people were lucky if they made it to 50 and they made it to 70 like you are. They were considered to be incredible, and definitely nobody really making it to the hundreds.
Yeah.
But now it seems that more and more people are engaged in these kind of things to enlighten themselves in some ways.
Yes. Well, we're becoming more accepting of the differences. Not that we have to follow somebody else's point of view, but we accept their point of view more. We're starting to look for the good wherever it may be found. A great example of what you just said is yoga, but another one, Dean, is meditation.
Right.
Like 30 years ago, meditation was weird. Don't do meditation. Are you kidding? That's from India. That's from, and don't do that. And then meditation became, who got accepted? The masters are very smart. Do you know how meditation got popular in the Western world?
No, I don't.
There was a yogi in the East named the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and he decided that his goal in life, what God wanted him to do, was bring meditation to the Western world. So he tried to think of a meditation that would be simple enough for people in the Western world to grasp and to practice. And he came up with transcendental meditation. And you know who he taught it to first? The Beatles.
Oh, the Beatles.
The Beatles. He taught it to the Beatles. The Beatles said, "This is the greatest thing since sliced bread," and whoosh, took over in England and then Europe, and then it moved to the Americas. And now meditation is a very common thing. Everybody accepts it as a practical way to get in touch with the soul, to get focused, to get our spirituality in life focused and grounded. And the same is true with yoga. So we're starting to see the good wherever it shows up, even if it's in a belief system that we don't subscribe to. We accept things more now, and that's a sign of Aquarian energy, absolutely. Acceptance and tolerance of differences. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to have unity in diversity. America is a great example of that. What they took people from Africa and Europe and dumped them all in America. Eventually, that's what happened. And they got all these Italians over here, and the French over here, and the Germans over here, and the African Americans over here. And what's happening is we're all starting to live together. We're all intermarrying. We're all becoming Americans. And that's exactly what America is the great experiment from the masters. The masters wanted to see if a melting pot would work on Earth. And they created America as this great experiment, and it's working. Slowly but surely, some of it real slowly, like civil rights and prejudice, but it's getting there, one step at a time. Well, things are going to change real fast when the masters get here. This whole timetable is going to speed up like you can't believe it. But one of the things Benjamin Crumb's master said is Americans will be a mixture of every race and every look on the planet. And he said Americans will be recognized immediately because they'll look different than anybody else on the planet. An American can go to Europe, they'll be immediately recognized as an American because we will be our own selves. We will be a mixture, a conglomeration of all of the aspects that have been put in America to get along and to become one. And that's what's slowly happening. It's a pretty cool experiment. And
So even some of the churches because even some of the religions that don't have necessarily a professed book of religion, like I'm thinking about some of my Native American ancestry and everything, even some of those religions talk about a messenger or like a great one and everything of that nature. So you're saying that there was probably one of these world travelers or messengers of peace even among the Native American people that were here in America even before the Europeans and the rest of society got here.
Well, the Native Americans are ahead of most of us. I mean, if you just listen to the things some of their great chiefs said, I forget his name, but he said, whatever damage we do to the world, we do to ourselves. To nature, we do to ourselves. He's absolutely right. I mean, they've been ahead of the game for a long time. Yes, in the Native American tradition, there's a story of a great white teacher that came. My information, according to the Ageless Wisdom, is that was Jesus. Jesus came to the Americas after he was crucified and raised. He raised his body from the dead. He eventually came to the Americas and inspired the Native Americans. And I mean, his medicine was so powerful. I mean, they knew the truth when they heard it, just like you and I do. When you hear the truth, you know it. You know, you don't need proof. You know it's the truth. Well, that's the impression he left on them, because these masters have tremendous energies. And so he left this great impression, and this story came down about the teachings of this great white teacher that came to the Native Americans. That was Jesus, which it makes all the sense in the world to me. I mean, Jesus came to serve humanity and teach us the ways of God, and especially the love of God. And so it just makes sense to me that was true, that he did that. Like I said, I'm not asking anybody to believe this. I'm just putting it out there because it's information that makes sense to me.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Now, one of the other things that I'm just curious about is, I know when I was doing my research and everything, that you talk about, and a lot of people, I remember I was a big fan of X-Files, which dealt with UFOs and things of that nature. But you talk about how a lot of even the sightings and some of the things that we are told about that deal with UFOs and things that are out into space aren't really figments of our imagination. They are actual reality, and they are part of the grander message, if I'm understanding what I'm reading from y'all.
They are. They're part of the forces of light. The forces of light are here to help us transform life on this planet so that it will just get better and better and better and better. And we will become aware of who we are, and we'll treat each other better. And that the space people, I don't call them aliens, because that's a horrible name made up by the Western governments to discredit them. They're really our brothers and sisters. They're our space brothers and sisters. They look like us. Some are taller, some are shorter, but they basically look like us. There are no monsters out there with tails and one eye in the middle of their forehead. They're here at the request of our hierarchy, our spiritual hierarchy, our masters of wisdom. There are 63 masters that make up the spiritual kingdom, the masters of hierarchy, the custodians of the ageless wisdom. They're people who have gone through evolution, like I said, ahead of us. Saint Germain is one of them. I mentioned Joan of Arc. Mary, the mother of Jesus, is one of them. John, Paul, Ringo. No, not Ringo. Just kidding. But St. John and St. Paul, they're masters now, great masters. And they have asked the space people to come and help. They're here on a 4-part mission to serve us. They're good. They're not bad. There was a time when bad people from other planets could come here, but that's over now. They've been restricted to their own planet because they were raising too much hell. So now they're only good, and they're here to help. They're here to serve us. One of the things they're doing is mopping up pollution. They have huge motherships that are doing nothing 24 hours a day but mopping up pollution to keep our planet alive until we wake up and finish the job. Now, they can't clean it all up because it's not their mess. So karmically, they're limited as to how much they can clean up. But they're mopping up pollution, mostly nuclear pollution. It's horrible. We don't realize how much nuclear pollution there is around our planet and in the seas and in the earth. And that's the biggest thing. It's the most harmful pollution, and that's the biggest thing they're mopping up. They've been doing this for decades. We owe them a great debt. But they've been doing this to keep the planet alive. Otherwise, this planet would be dying, and there would be literally no hope for this planet if they hadn't helped us out in the interim until we start cleaning things up. So nuclear pollution, by the way, the 2 biggest effects of nuclear pollution are this. Earlier and earlier onset of Alzheimer's. It's happening earlier and earlier. And the second big cause of nuclear pollution is a huge increase in the incidence of autistic children. It used to be 1 in every 800 kids born was autistic. Now it's 1 in 80. It's mainly because of nuclear pollution. Our science is so limited that we can't measure all of the radiation that's out there, only parts of it. The highest level of vibration, the highest level of nuclear pollution that we can't measure is the one that's causing most of the damage. We need to shut down our nuclear plants right away. That's one of the first things the world teacher will say, is I want to suggest to you that you shut them down. Here's why. You talked about disease and dying early and so on earlier, because the pollution is lowering our body's immune systems. So we're getting flus we would have never gotten before. We're getting cancers we would have never gotten before. We're getting a lot of diseases that our immune system just isn't powerful enough to fight off anymore. It would be if it wasn't for the pollution, but our immune systems are lower, so we're suffering a lot of diseases. Now, as we clean up the planet, our immune system is going to pop back up, and there's going to be a lot less disease. A lot less disease and a lot less wear and tear on the human bodies, and we're going to live well into our hundreds, I'm told. We'll be living to 120, 130 years old. The lifespan of humanity is going to increase pretty dramatically once we clean up the planet.
Wow. But how is medicine going to deal with this? Because one of the other big things, and it's one of the big corporations, is the medical corporation. Because, well, it doesn't want us to have all that many cures. Because some of the cures that they even know out there, there's cures that they are aware of that they don't necessarily put out there to society because it's not being marketed by them.
Right. You raise a great point. The pharmaceutical industry is about money and political influence. That's what they're about. They're not about healing humanity. They charge too much, so stuff isn't available to people that should be available. There are some medicines that could be very beneficial to humanity, but they're not affordable to everybody. That's got to change. The second thing that's going to change is we're going to start healing ourselves more naturally. I don't know if you've heard of homeopathic remedies.
Yes.
Or
definitely.
homeopathic, Homeopathic medicine uses energy. It uses energy. So if a certain type of bark, let's say from a tree, which the Native Americans probably discovered in the first place, it helps to heal a certain illness, what homeopathy does is it takes that bark, it grinds it up, it gets it down to the molecular level, and then it titrates it. And by titrating it, I mean it adds alcohol to it, and then it shakes it and stirs it. Then it adds more alcohol, shakes it, and stirs it. And it does that a certain number of times. And what you have left, you don't even have the molecules of the bark left. There's no bark left in that solution. It's just the energy of the bark. It's energy healing. And that energy can be put into sugar tablets or it can be used as a liquid form. That's homeopathic. They don't call it medicine, they call it remedies. Well, it's very inexpensive, very inexpensive. You can go into a drugstore or a Whole Foods or many of the health stores, and you can buy these little tubes of Boiron is the biggest manufacturer, Boiron. These little blue and white tubes about as big as your little finger, full of probably, 70 pills, and then you can take it's like $8, $9 for that.
Wow.
Anybody can afford it. Well, homeopathy is going to become the medicine of the future. We're going to be healed by energy. And that's the way medicine is going to go. Now, there are certain medicines that are taking care of certain diseases right now because our immune systems are so low. We need those medicines. It's not going to be an overnight transition. But I'll tell you something that Maitreya, the world teacher, has done. I'm so glad you brought this up because it's really important. He has found underground wells around the globe that produce basically what he has determined will be an almost unlimited source of water, pure water. And what he's done is he's magnetized those wells. He's blessed them. It changes the energy in the well, and it becomes healing water. You may have heard of Lourdes, the fountain in France that's healing water. Well, this is healing water about 100 times more powerful than Lourdes. And these wells are starting to pop up. There is one outside of Mexico City. That's the one that I know about because I'm in Southern California. Near a town called Tlacote, Tlacote, where the farmer's sick dog licked up the water that was coming out of the ground. He got well. Farmer gave the water to some other sick animals. They got well. He talked to local hospital, and they're giving it to some of their patients. Most of them got well. So he talked to the Mexican government, and they decided to give him enough money to dig down and dig wells to get this water up in big storage tanks